to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the epic A Death in a Family by Stephen Hall. This feels like a season finale in a sense. It's very bombastic, it's very crazy, and what I find really funny is that this story came out in 2010 and it has the wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey elements that would be popular in the Stephen Moffat era of the show, which started also in 2010. In fact, many scenes remind me of Stephen Moffat's era, which I find really strange. For those of you who are interested in this story, I'm ashamed to say that it's one of the stories which is heavily reliant on the story arc of Hex. In fact, this particular story deals with the aftermath of a particular revelation that Hex learned in the previous story that was released, entitled Project Destiny, which I don't own. And if you want to get into that story, you have to catch up with the Hex stuff. You've also got to catch up with the Forge stuff and some elements with the Sixth Doctor. So that one I felt really just wasn't for me, and I was kind of hoping that the connections weren't too heavy that I could get this. But yeah, it's a lot of bits I did feel like I was missing out on because I haven't listened to every story in the Hex storyline. So that's really a shame, and it's one of those things where I feel like this video is going to be incomplete because it's going to be me talking about a plot line halfway through its progress. But yeah, so for those of you who want to know what happened, this is a spoiler for Project Destiny, so you've been warned. Basically what happens in that story is that Hex found out that his mother, Cassie Schofield, was once part of an adventure with the Sixth Doctor in which she became a vampire, I believe, and she did horrible and disturbing things in this form. Now luckily there is a previously on Doctor Who kind of montage at the start of this story before it actually begins, but it's still important to note that this story follows up from plot lines in the previous story. This story also features the character of Evelyn Smythe, who is actually a Sixth Doctor companion, which we never tackled. At least we didn't tackle any of her stories, though I have mentioned her in my Sixth Doctor marathon videos. And essentially she was, I believe, the first ever companion created by Big Finish. And she's a history teacher that travelled with the Doctor, who's a lot older. She's actually like the age of like somebody's grandmother. And she is a bit of a handful, and she's actually not afraid to tell the Doctor when he's got a step too far, when he's being a bit of a control freak or a bit of thing. And she's always she's someone who could basically stop him from being so brash and egotistical in his first time meeting her in his sixth incarnation, which would lead into the Big Finish master plan, as some call it, of turning the Sixth Doctor into a much more kinder and loving incarnation of the Doctor. And here she appears, she doesn't have a massive role, but she does appear in the story. Another thing as well, which I'm going to have to state for this video, there is so much spoilers in this story. I literally can't talk about 3/4 of the story without getting into spoilers. So if you have any plans on listening onto this story, turn this video off and go listen to it. I will promise you, if you love the Seventh Doctor, his manipulative ways, and you love this particular era, you won't be disappointed. It's a great story. But it does mean that it basically feels like I said, it feels like a finale, and that this story is the conclusion of a mass season line of Hex stories. So, yeah. This story also has the returning villain, the Wordlord, aka Nobody No One, who previously appeared in the 45 story, The Wordlord. And here he becomes the main villain of a 4-part adventure. So he's moved up in the world. This was actually supposed to be a second of a trilogy of Wordlord stories. Sadly, however, because of what I've been told is budget issues. However, this is audio drama, so I don't understand that that criticism. But because of apparently budget, Stephen Hall wasn't able to finish his trilogy of Wordlord stories. So yeah, that's kind of a bummer. So anyway, this is the official Big Finish CD cover, which features the Doctor and Smythe and Ace and Hex in there, and there's also a Time Lord sarcophagus, but there, which, I must be honest, before I listened to this and I saw that, my brain instantly went to the Hand of Omega. So, yeah, very, very bizarre. And like always with these Big Finish official CD covers, I've made my own DVD, my own unofficial DVD cover. This one I've actually put together myself. I'd taken the image of the CD and I'd given it the background of this old-fashioned like words, because I knew that the Wordlord was going to be a main villain. And I think this one, it's one of my early ones, so it's not like particularly well detailed, but I think this, the idea of it especially, comes off extremely well and the characters bounce off on the background. Here's the spine if anyone is interested. And of course you've got the back. Sorry, the cover's a bit muddy there. And it's clearly a giveaway that I put this together and not that I haven't stolen it off the internet. So right off the bat in the first episode, right off we get a Stephen Moffat moment. Basically, our characters are basically reflecting on the fact of Project Destiny, and they're talking about Hex's mother and that he doesn't know if he can trust the Doctor anymore. Before, he's always been this manipulative character, but he wouldn't have believed him to hide the secret of his family heritage, and wouldn't put the Doctor, thinking that the Doctor would do something horrible like what he did in that story. Again, I haven't seen that story, I do apologise. But they're in this, I believe, it's in the future, it's in a secret like base or something. And the unit soldiers are actually looking around for some gadgets and gizmos. They're looking around, they've seen some temporal anomalies in this place. And one of them that they find is actually a sarcophagus with the Rassilon symbol, implying that there's a Time Lord involved. And so the Ace, the Doctor and Hex find this sarcophagus and they open it. And this is this is literally like the first 10 minutes. And already there's such a massive spoiler that I'm like, literally, if you want to know what happens in this story, if you don't want to know what happens in this story, please turn away right now. Because the person in the sarcophagus is an older version of the 7th incarnation of the Doctor. Yeah, that's really bizarre. This came out in 2010, and something very similar would have happened in the 11th Doctor story, The Pandorica Opens, where the Doctor's trying to break into basically a tomb, only to be revealed that the Doctor is supposed to be in it anyway. This older doctor seems to be crazy. He's originally like in some sort of coma, speaking to himself, mumbling words, mumbling and making not much sense. And they actually get him up, and the younger doctor's like, "This is impossible! This isn't supposed to happen! I'm not supposed to be there, I'm not supposed to know all this. It's dangerous for two of the same incarnations of the Doctor to be in the same place." And that just automatically, you just go, whoa, this is going to be epic. It's going to be one of those stories, and my God, does it deliver in terms of its epicness. Essentially, they discover that this older doctor was there because he trapped an entity. And his characters wandered around. Hex later on leaves because he just can't handle the fact that the doctor's been such a manipulative prick. Anyway, and he sits down with by these ducks by a pond, basically, just reflecting on life. And back at the base, somebody says to the Doctor that nobody can escape. Nobody can escape. And that nobody is with Hex. Ace orders some unit soldiers to go looking for Hex. And one of them, I tell a lie. The line was actually, nobody can find Hex. Which means nobody finds Hex. As Hex starts talking to this strange individual. Now what's really interesting is that he's played by, this incarnation, is played by Ian Reddington. He's best known to Doctor Who fans as the main clown in The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. This guy is phenomenal at playing villains. And here is no exception. My God, he really knows how to enjoy every moment of this. And basically he's trying to get Hex to basically talk about the Doctor to try and understand him better. Until he accidentally gives away that he knows Hex's name. And it's back at the base do they realise that, oh bugger, the older Doctor was actually trying to imprison the Word Lord. He has returned. He's in this situation. But now the danger of the Word Lord is being pumped up to 1,000. As in the last story where he appeared, they were at a limited base in Antarctica where there was only a handful of people. Here, they're near a giant city where loads of people are talking, coming up with words, coming up with vocabulary, with grammar, with sentences that basically he can, if saying the right word, can become a god. And in a way he does. At one point, like he gets back to the Doctor and he's laughing because he's like, none of you can hurt me, and we're in an area where everybody uses like the sentence nobody all the time. Somebody said, nobody kill me. Some other person says, nobody can turn off the sun. And then there's a great scene where it's like, and now I can do that. With a click of my fingers, and everybody, you could just hear like people screaming in the background. It's like, oh my God, it's night. How did it all suddenly become night? And the Doctor confronts the Word Lord, and the Word Lord turns the sun back on the premise that he needs to see the Doctor's face because he wants his revenge. He hates the Doctor to a T. He also explains that he's had many adventures against the Seventh Doctor, that even though this is only the second encounter with the Word Lord for the Doctor, for the Word Lord he's had multiple, maybe even thousands of battles with the Doctor. And his last imprisonment was the Doctor to lock himself into himself in a way, and lock him in a sarcophagus where he will hopefully not be disturbed. Criticism with that if the Doctor didn't want to get disturbed, why did he make his sarcophagus with the Rassilon symbol on it? That's just like, seemed to be tempting people to be like, what, it's something to do with the Doctor, let's try and open it to see what's in it, kind of. It's very strange. The Word Lord actually gets a hold of a prisoner, one of the unit soldiers, and he forces him to say the unholy words. That nobody has power over life and death. Nobody has the ability to stop the Doctor from regenerating when he dies. Nobody can kill the Doctor. To which the Word Lord points a gun to the Doctor and shoots him, kills him. Stone dead. The story ends, episode 1 ends with Ace and Hex going up to the body as Hex tries to revive him, but can't, as the older Doctor states, it's too late. It's impossible to revive him. It's too late. I'm dead. Yeah, you can see what I mean. Like, it's very wibbly wobbly, tiny whiny of the Doctor's deceased, and that is a great twist in and of itself, that this story deals with the death of the Doctor. But I think what's really great about this adventure is that usually when this happens, the next episode kind of quickly resolves it. But here the story does something remarkably different. When they were actually pitching this, Nicholas Briggs, I'm trying to remember the editor's name of Big Finish, Gary Russell, something like that, and Stephen Hall were coming up with ideas to try and have a story where Ace and Hex have adventures without the Doctor, and this is where he implied, why don't we just kill the Doctor, where he got permission to kill the Doctor. And what happens here in the next 2 episodes, individually from each other, is they focus on essentially what the companions do after the Doctor's death. In episode 2, we actually get caught up with Evelyn Smythe on her planet right after her adventures with the 6th Doctor. At this point in her timeline, she's finished her travels with the Doctor. Sadly, however, this adventure of her final appearance never came to fruition. When this story was released, Evelyn was still having a run with the 6th Doctor, and there were plans for her to have her final story. But sadly, the actress who played her passed away prior for them to create a satisfying conclusion adventure. So that's kind of a bummer. And she kind of hears the TARDIS dematerialise, and when she goes to the sound of it, she actually meets up with Hex all by himself, who explains, and we get some flashbacks of basically what's been happening. Essentially, the older Doctor explains that it's too late to change the timelines. The timelines are already now set. In this timeline, the Doctor is dead. There is nothing they can do about it. The Doctor is dead. And this older Doctor is just a shadow, a wrinkle of a previous timeline, in a sense. So he's basically like fading away from existence, to where he essentially, he gives Ace certain equipment and tells them that basically he's going to drop them off in certain places. He drops Hex off to the planet where Evelyn is, and the Doctor talks to Hex and he's like, I'm really sorry about the secrets I kept. I am genuinely in the wrong. Sometimes you keep secrets because it's the right thing to do, but sometimes we keep secrets because we think we're doing the right thing. We think we're protecting people when in fact we're not. And that's what I was doing to you. I thought I was protecting you, but no. And the Doctor fades away as Hex hears the TARDIS dematerialising. Presumably Ace is flying the TARDIS to the next location in which the Doctor is keeping them. And literally all episode 2, the only recurring Doctor Who characters in episode 2 is Hex and Evelyn. As Hex basically gets used to this new environment. Evelyn basically explains that she was actually part of the adventure of the Sixth Doctor and the one that to do with Hex's mother. I believe this is actually seen in a story called Project Lazarus. I believe, I'm not quite sure. But anyway, Hex basically predicts that the Doctor put him there to learn more about his mother and basically make new friends and have a new start in this place. And Hex also befriends Evelyn's young ward, this girl who basically sort of relates to him because her mother is being sent to the afterlife, and that her father's dead. Hex is originally like, I'm sorry to hear about your mother and father, but then she laughs about her mother, stating that she's not dead, she's just been sent to the afterlife, which is actually a church in which this sentient story lives, and the story has a symbiotic connection with a host, which they call the storyteller, the story soothsayer or something like that. And essentially what happens is that this person basically gives up their free will to keep this sentient story alive. What happens then is when people die in this place, they kind of get resurrected in a fictional but real universe in which they're fictional characters, if that makes any sense. They can also predict the future, as they worry that Hex might be the destroyer of the future, as the story tells that these 3 people are going to come. The homeless hero actually says at the back of the box, I'll read it out to you. The future folds into the past. The homeless hero has fallen. Now begins the time of 3 tales. The tales of the heretic, the tale of the hidden woman, the tale of the final speaker. When the last tale is told, and the light shall fall, the world will end. So yeah, they basically set up the apocalypse. And Hex and this girl befriend each other, and Hex is kind of worried about this sentient story being told constantly with these words. Obviously, he's referring to the fact that the Word Lord could still technically be out there and use this power to his advantage. But this girl gets annoyed at Hex, and she thought that he could relate to the fact that her mother, she can't connect to her mother anymore. Her mother's not really like there in the head in a way, and that he can't talk to his mother because she was turned into a vampire, I believe, or that she is actually dead. So yeah, we get some really sweet moments with Hex and Evelyn, and yeah, it's just really great character building. There's not no villains in these parts in episodes 2 and 3, but we see a sort of plot line thread up. And I must be honest, episode 2 is actually my favourite episode, as we learn a lot about Hex's sorrows and his sadness. Again, this relies on the audience's connection with the story arc. So I don't think I enjoyed it as much as the story could have given it to me, but, you know, that could be considered my fault in a way. Episode 2 actually ends with Hex finding a letter from Ace, who explains that from her point of view it's actually been roughly 10-20 years, and now she's married and she's now Dorothy Moore, and that Dorothy Noir, I can't remember how she pronounces it, and she says that she wants Hex. She needs a favour from Hex. There's going to be a church there with somebody constantly talking, and I need you to get there. And that ends that cliffhanger for part 2. Part 3 then goes back, to which the older Doctor starts taking Hex to meet Evelyn. But before that, he's actually talking to Ace, to which Ace is like refusing to give up, and he's like, Doctor, this doesn't sound like you. This time stuff the timelines. Bring yourself back from the dead. There are so many people who need a doctor, who need to exist, who need to live. And the Doctor's like, no, Ace, there's no point. There's no way of winning this time. The story is done. I have failed. I've lost. I've died. And Ace is basically, you know, she's really stubborn. And the Doctor basically gives her the equipment that he found in his tomb back at the unit base, in a sense. One of them seems to be a connection to the alien internet in a way. One of them is this device that basically is a universal mailbox which allows you to send any item to any point in space and time, but it's a bit faulty, as well as the internet machine relies on somebody thinking of a particular something to allow it to open, so Ace has no access to it. The Doctor also gives her a lime fruit for seemingly no reason. And Ace, when the Doctor is talking to Hex outside, tries to pilot the TARDIS. What she finds is she actually lands in 2022. A year in the future for us. Where actually she is like outside the White Rabbit pub, which we last saw in The Harvest. So that's some really nice connection in a sense. And she's basically stuck there trying to figure out what UNIT has done to the Doctor's corpse. And she keeps breaking in and out. Through this part, we hear her befriend a character. I believe his name is Jonathan Moore. I'm trying to see if it says on the back. It doesn't say. God damn it, they never say on the back of these. But Ace befriends a guy called Jonathan Moore, who takes a liking to her. There's a great scene in which, in the second time they meet each other, he asks the Ace for her number, for her phone number, but Ace is like, I don't have a phone. It's like, don't be absurd, everyone has a phone. Ace is like, not me. It's like, okay, I can get the hint. You don't like me. And episode 3, is basically Ace growing up, trying to find out what UNIT has done with the Doctor's body. She also gets some run-ins with the Forge, who have been tracking her after she's been trying to tell people that the Doctor's dead and that she can't find his body. They've done something mysterious to his body. And so Ace and this Moore character tried to break into UNIT's base and Forge's base until she has an encounter with one of them where she basically it's like we hid the body in a place where Forge soldiers, the greatest heroes, go to basically be buried. we're keeping the Doctor's death a secret. Because do you know what that means? If other intelligent life forms found out that Earth's defense is weakened, that they have no Doctor anymore. Like, all of the Doctor's villains who wanted to conquer Earth would come down and invade this planet. Would invade Earth. And Ace basically has to come to terms, comes to reality, and she starts breaking down and crying. And then she kind of spends a few years with her boyfriend. She gets in love with this boyfriend. And she takes some gadgets and gizmos that she left in the TARDIS back to their flat. And they're trying to get the tablet to work just out of curiosity. And Ace then picks up the fruit, which has now got mouldy, and whilst her boyfriend's holding the tablet, he thinks of the word lime, because it's a lime-coloured fruit, to which the access to the machine opens. It allows access to these characters, and something clicks in Ace. The Doctor never does anything without a purpose, without a reason. This was entirely planned. Ace being transported to this particular time and being left with this stuff, the idea of leaving Hex on this planet, this was just a gigantic plan. This is the Doctor manipulating them once again to try and defeat the Word Lord once and for all. The Doctor still, even after death, is manipulating them to Ace's kind of relief. However, again, that brings up some emotional turmoil as she basically figures out what's going on and what she needs to do thanks to this alien internet and doing some research on where Hex is and stuff. And the story, episode 3, ends with sorry, I keep getting the names wrong. Ace asking her boyfriend to come up with a letter, to make a letter of what they would be like, what Ace would be like in 10 years' time when they get married and have kids. Make the most detailed letter and then bring it to me at the pub tomorrow morning. Episode 4 opens with the Forge going into the base where they find one of their soldiers seemingly in a coma, mumbling to himself. And when one of the Forge say their catchphrase for king and country, which was actually stated in the first episode to be the Word Lord's Cordis, his interpretation of the TARDIS, that a being suddenly springs out of reality. And every character in the base is like, who the hell is that person? Who are you? And then a familiar voice talks, but it's not the Word Lord, it's Ace. And she's like, were you expecting someone else? That's another mind-blowing moment. So, yeah, and episode 4 then has Ace confront the Word Lord after he kills the unit and Forge soldiers in this base. And essentially is like, you can't hurt me, I'm a being from a completely different dimension in an avatar state, whereas you are a mortal with a flesh and skin in this reality. You physically cannot harm me. To which, in my most favourite scene, Ace just punches him in the nose where he starts bleeding. And this is where it's revealed that this isn't actually Ace. This is another word creature. Essentially what happened is that Ace made her boyfriend write this story, and she transplanted this letter into the machine that teleports items. She teleported this item to Hex, who she told, after she discovered on this vast internet thing, to actually transplant this being, this letter to the storyteller, where it will, this version of her would come to life, where she lived her life 10 years in the future, being married to this man. And so essentially she's also a word lord now, at least this version. The real Ace is actually crying in the TARDIS as she had to manipulate her boyfriend in a way which would actually end their relationship in a way. But it's on purpose, it's the right thing to do. As you see, this is Ace Noir, which is actually spelt the same way as no one, because it's got two O's in it, just doesn't have the space, but it's still spelt the same way, which in the Word Lord's universe, everything's just more spelt out. Which means when they track back in time and they look into the previous events, when somebody said nobody controls life and death, nobody, oh sorry, it wasn't nobody, it's no one. No one controls life and death. No one controls the Doctor's in his life and death state. And essentially what this does is it gives the same abilities to the Word Lord as it does to this version of Ace, to which she screams, "I can bring the Doctor back to life!" And probably one of the like yes moments is there's this expedition, like later scene, there's this tourists where they're looking around and they're like, they say that the greatest heroes in history are buried in these walls, but nobody can find any evidence of it. And then you start hearing knocking, and you hear a familiar voice, the Doctor's voice, cry out for help as he's stuck in what seems like a tomb. The Doctor is resurrected, and Ace actually states that part of this truthsayer's power is actually connected to this soldier that's been knocked out in this room, and that she's going to trap the Word Lord in this story, in that particular story, which was actually an infection of what the older Doctor had in the tomb right at the beginning, trapping the Word Lord in a sense, in a way. And that actually happens like very early on in part 4. The majority of part 4 then is the Doctor reuniting with Ace in a very somber moment where they're hugging each other, and it's like, I'm so glad you're back, I'm so happy that we can meet again. Ace originally is like, right, I got to do something, I got to say goodbye to someone beforehand. But the Doctor notices she's keeping the tablet, and the Doctor takes the tablet off her, tells it to delete all its memory, and then gives it back. To which Ace is like, actually what I got to do is not important. Let's go and find Hex. So they go to Hex, where the 7th Doctor actually meets Evelyn. And there's a great moment and stuff. And then later on, Evelyn is having this speech where she's trying to reform this society who've actually, like in the Dark Ages, are like trying to like keep information because it's blasphemy, it's against their religion in some sense. But something happens. Evelyn struggles to speak, struggles to talk, and she collapses. As Hex states that she's having a heart attack, and the Doctor appears, and Evelyn's like, you know, don't you? You knew to come to this place, didn't you? Thank you, Doctor. We have a line from the Doctor, which I think is really disturbing, but man, it shows like the darker nature of the Doctor. The Doctor basically is like to Evelyn, remember when in the TARDIS you had a calendar of every people that we befriended, their birthdays? Well, let's just say I have a very similar calendar. Essentially what the Doctor's implying is that he has a calendar of all of the companions, all of his friends, all of the days that they're going to die on a calendar. And he knew that today was going to be Evelyn's death. And he asks her for a favour. All of a sudden, it seems like the Seventh Doctor and Evelyn are in a small little room, and Evelyn is completely fine and they're drinking tea, just like the good old days, something which would be a very common aspect of the Sixth Doctor and Evelyn's stories, of them just drinking tea and trying to relax for a bit. When all of a sudden the Word Lord returns and threatens the Doctor to basically kill the Doctor finally. And he states, it's like, I'm going to have all this power, I'm going to control the universe and everything and stuff. And Evelyn accidentally says, nobody has that power. To which the Word Lord goes absolutely mad with power. He's basically become a god at this point. And the Doctor's like, no, please don't, I beg you, I'm on my hands and knees, please don't do it. And the Word Lord is basically like, I hate this reality. I'm going to cause something which nobody in the multiverse has done. Ultra genocide. And he goes, with the click of my fingers, every human apart from Evelyn is now dead. Click my fingers, now every Time Lord except for the Doctor is now dead. Click my finger, every Dalek's dead. Click my finger, every atom, living sentient atom that's outside these walls, dead. Everyone, dead, 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 dead. All the suns destroyed, all the planets, everything. I'm the most powerful being in the universe. I can control everything. Everything is mine to command. And all the universes, all of the realities are mine to control. Sorry, I got really into that. And Evelyn is like, sorry, Doctor, but I had to say it. I just had to see if he would do it. And the Doctor's like, don't worry. Don't worry. The Word Lord is confused. Why aren't you showing any concern? You see, he hasn't actually harmed anyone. This isn't actually the real Doctor. This is just a story. Actually, no, it is the real Doctor, but it's just a mental projection of himself that he's actually transplanted into this fictional story universe. And that Evelyn is actually now the truth-sayer, the one who's speaking the story, and she's dying. And when she dies, this entire universe, this fictional reality universe, I know it's really confusing, dies, and with the Word Lord trapped in this dimension, with this ability of words in a world of reality, where the reality is words, it will kill him. There's no other way. He is going to die. And the story ends with Evelyn's death. They killed off the beloved Sixth Doctor's companion, Evelyn Smythe. And Hex is, he's like confronting himself. He's like, I don't know what to feel. Did the older Doctor put this here because he genuinely wanted us to enjoy our lives? Or were we all still part of his game? Is this all part of his manipulation still? I don't know, Ace. And Ace is like, you can stay here if you want, but it's your decision. And Hex is like, you could have stayed with your boyfriend, but you didn't. And so they return into the TARDIS. And that is a death in the family. Overall, this feels epic. It's one of those stories, I think, if you're really into this TARDIS crew, you cannot miss. It's big, it's bombastic, it's wibbly-wobbly, tiny-whiny. If you like Stephen Moffat style storylines, you're going to love this. And the Word Lord is a fantastic villain. I think the plotting of separating Hexes into one episode and Ace into one episode was a misfire though. If I had my way, I would have had it like mix and match. So episodes 2 and 3 do like a back of the ranch with Hex and Ace, because when we go to episode 3, it's all about Ace, and then when we go to episode 4 and we catch up back with Hex, it does kind of feel like that the Hex stuff is being shoved to the sidelines a bit, as all of the interesting connected stuff happened all the way in episode 2. We've had a gap between then, so it does kind of feel like it struggles to try and bring back the emotions that we connected in episode 2. But apart from that, this story is well paced, well executed, and to see a story where the Doctor's hardly in it, allowing for Ace and Hex to basically become the main characters again, which is something I noticed a lot in these audio dramas, is that Ace and Hex get a lot of time where they are the prominent figures for a while. It's very strange. But yeah, A Death in a Family, go check it out. So join me next time where we say goodbye to Hex in his final outing in the Doctor Who adventures. So join me next time for Signs and Wonder. So I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!